If I asked you to picture a symbol for operations, a few obvious ones probably come to mind. Gears turning, dashboards full of arrows and charts. Each one speaks to movement, precision, and efficiency. But today, we've moved far beyond gears simply turning. The modern ops environment has gotten an upgrade, not just from IT, but from AI. So today, we're talking AI operations, or AIOps for short. I'm joined by Chris Bailey, Director of Product Management for IT and Network Operations at IBM, and Manoj Khabe, VP of Observability, AIOps, and FinOps at Pellera Technologies. Together, we'll explore the modern face of operations, the challenges keeping leaders up at night, what agentic AI has to do with it, and why visibility may be the key to unification. Who knows? By the end of this conversation, the symbol for observations might look a little different. Maybe, just maybe, as Chris puts it, it looks like an elephant. So today we're breaking down AIOps and what it means for the future of work. Chris, Manoj, welcome. Great to have you here today. Chris, you've been living and breathing AIOps at IBM for over 2 decades, before it was even called that. If you think back to those early days of observability and automation, how has your relationship with AI changed over the course of time?
Actually, if you think back historically, all IT is really about automation. Everything IT has ever done has been around taking tasks and doing an implementation of those. And that's certainly been true in the operations that comes as a side effect of IT. As systems have got more complicated, operations has got more complicated, and we've had to increasingly build more advanced tooling to make operations simple. AI has been a key part of that, right? So right from the very beginning, when we started building operations tools to just collect data and surface that data to operators, then we moved to, we need to analyze that data to help you understand what it means. All of this has been some form of automation. Now, there's 2 forms of automation. There's automation to, bring understanding and make decisions, which is where AI typically comes in. And then there's automation to do something about that, which is where actions come in. So really, we've always been on this journey of building more advanced capabilities, which has included how to analyze, which is AI, and then how to take action. And AIOps is now getting us to the point where we can genuinely start to automate lots of operations, and we can actually start to get to almost, self-healing systems.
Yeah, I like that idea that, everything we've done with computers is to automate things, right? Make things more easy and systematic. I mean, it reminds me, Manoj, last time you were here, right, we talked about AI's role in observability. Today, right, we're talking about moving beyond that visibility, taking the insights and turning them directly into actions. Can you paint a picture for us? In your mind, how do you see that observability feeds into AIOps?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think to kind of add on to what Chris was talking about, the landscape of observability doesn't really stop at just up, down and monitoring the application availability. I think the modernization that we are going through from ideation to realization of any product ideas goes through a lot of different phases and iterations and different technologies. You have now these applications are not just typical 3-tier applications. You have different infrastructure complexities. You have a lot of different solutions and technologies that makes up your kind of helps you to bring that idea to fruition. And a lot of these, when you're going through this process, you're dynamically, you see the changes. So how do we really bring everything together? And that is where the integration of observability with AIOps is critical, to have that cohesive single source of truth, so to speak, where not only you are collecting the observability metrics, what we call the golden signals, the logs and traces and metrics. It's also important that you also gather the information from all the surrounding elements that are supporting your projects.
Interesting. That makes me think of back in my science days, right? We always talk about the system and the surrounding. And what I hear you saying is previously we only looked at just the system, but now as we move into the future, we need to be looking at both the system and the surrounding. Chris, can you help us understand what is AIOps? How is this being redefined? The system, the surrounding, 3-tier platform versus a full 360-degree view of moving towards a self-healing system.
On one side, AIOps is increasingly becoming kind of like an umbrella term for how we are modernizing and improving all operations tools with AI and automation. At the same time, there was also kind of a market segment, a set of tools called event management tools. So there's a parable of the 6 blind men and the elephant, if you're not aware of it. The idea is that, 6 blind men walk up to an elephant and each touch one aspect of the elephant. And the one that touches the leg thinks it's a tree. The one that touches the tail thinks that it's a rope. The one that touches the side thinks that it's the wall. Right? So when you've got multiple tools, each looking at one aspect of a solution, everyone has a separate view of what it is and what the problem is. And one of the goals of event management tools was to say, look, when there's an incident, when we've got some kind of an outage, because outages tend to propagate and cascade through a system, you've got each of these teams seeing only one aspect of the problem. They don't even know that they're looking at the same problem. And it was the way to bring a comprehensive view together. Now, when Gartner created the AIOps term, they also applied it to this market segment of event management. So there's always been this confusion that is AIOps the evolution of this event management, or is it generally bringing AI and automation to everything? Now, to kind of remove that confusion, Gartner themselves are now clarifying that AIOps really is this umbrella term for modernizing operations with AI and automation. And that event management piece, Gartner are now talking about it as event intelligence. We in IBM, we go a stage further. What we say is the problem it actually solves is unified operations. Right? It's solving that kind of 6 blind men and elephant problem, but it's not doing it with just events. We're taking data from across those tools to first give you unified visibility, being able to show you that this is not a wall, not a tail, not a tree. What you've got is an elephant. And you can only see that by bringing the pieces together and assembling the whole. Then, of course, yes, if there is an incident, we can tell you there's an incident that's occurring. It started in this place. It's propagated through the system. So the term AIOps has for some time been quite confusing. Is it we're applying AI and automation to operations, or is it a specific product? It is the modernization of operations with IT and automation. But this market segment that is being conflicted with around event management.
Now, if we turn that definition around, what is the core, business problem that this now solves for an organization? They have a better understanding of what's going on. They know that they've got an elephant, and it's not that the wall is shaking or, the rope is moving, right? It's the elephant is now snoring.
The goal of an operations team is every single IT application is the implementation of a task or set of tasks. Usually something that's critical to the business. So if IT is down, the business is down. So the goal of operations has always been to make sure that your business is up and running, that your systems are available, that they are running without errors, and that they are available running without errors with sufficient performance and responsiveness so that the users of those systems can complete their tasks. That's always been the goal. Now, equally, the implementations of those systems are more complicated than they've ever been. This is part of how we harness all of the power that you've now got from computing. Is we build a series of reusable components and services. Right? We have more technologies available to us to solve more problems. And that means deployments are more complicated. And that increasingly means that, yes, what I'm delivering is online banking. But the reason why people can't log into their account isn't because I have an account service. It's because, yes, there is an account service, but that's reliant on a database. That database is running on a machine. That machine uses storage, and there's a storage problem. Right? So there is a huge chain of resources, components, and teams that have to work together to support something as simple as logging in to online banking. So as the system gets more complicated, we need to bring visibility to that through observability tools and unified operations management tools that bridge across those 6 blind men's tools and gives you that unified view so that the moment online banking is down, it's because we've got a problem with our storage, or we've had a database outage, or we've got a problem with an application server, or someone's just pushed a bad fix to a component, 4 stages deep in the request chain.
I mean, from a solution side, this makes a lot of sense to me. Manoj, I'm curious, as you engage our clients on this, I'm curious, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that organizations have around what AIOps is, what it does, what it doesn't do?
AIOps is not just the evolution of what I call the boring event management or operations. It's about improving the mean time to identification, and even then quickly isolating the problem, and then quickly identifying the probable cause, and even leveraging automation and AI capability to fix resolve the problem faster. That's the main, I would say, differentiation when you are looking at comparing your traditional event management platform versus the AIOps capability. I would like to kind of, Jonathan, walk you through the customer use case that we're working with this customer for last 12 to 18 months, one of the largest auto manufacturer in the United States. They had a similar challenge about various different tool sets to really look at the same problem from various angles, and was very difficult to identify the probable cause, kind of causing a lot of inefficiencies to detect the incident. And because of that, and not able to find the probable cause, their applications, especially their assembly lines, the auto loan payment application, and also the order and parts order application was having a lot of these frequent interruptions. And so it was prolonged incident triage, increased the mean time to resolution. So they actually came to Pellera, IBM to say, hey, this is our challenge. How can you help us to be the forefront of this challenge? Give us a solution that can help us to not just enhance our operational experience, but also leverage AI ML capability to be more proactive in nature, leverage automation so I can quickly resolve my problems using automation capability. Also looking at some of those machine learning algorithms that IBM's CP4 AIOps solution has. How can I leverage those to even reduce the noise, so to speak, and reduce my fatigue so my operations and SREs are not flooded with the non-actionable alerts, so to speak.
So, what you're saying is what we were able to do for this client was to tie into all the different data streams of what's happening. And because they got greater visibility, they were able to be more reactive and proactive on different things that saved them time, that decreased the amount of dissatisfaction by people internal to the organization, also customers outside the organization.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think, and this is, I would say, just a scratching surface, by the way. We just started with a couple of network applications, use cases, and now we are rolling out to the cloud applications, rolling out to other customer facing applications. So this outcome that we were able to demonstrate was within a very small scale of application and use cases. And now there is the possibilities are endless. It's a really very powerful platform to bring in the unstructured data, structured data, and leverage AI to bring that, to connect the dots and hidden insights to give you the meaningful data to make decisions.
Chris, I'm curious, breaking down these silos between tools and teams, what does that look like in practice?
So as I said, the first thing that we try and do is bring end-to-end visibility, right? So a lot of customers that we work with, a simple example of this is they have a network team, right? So the network team is running all of their routers, their switches, their network infrastructure. They're also often running SD-WAN, so external network private network between certain components. But they're kind of often seen as plumbing and infrastructure. Then you have the IT team, right? And often you have an IT infrastructure team. They own machines and virtual machines and maybe Kubernetes clusters. Now, of course, all of the communication between those machines, virtual machines and Kubernetes clusters is run by the network. And then on top of the infrastructure, you have applications and services, which are often different teams depending on the application and the service. So the first thing that we do is bring together that information so that if you're a network person, right, you now actually understand that the routers and the switches that you support, which infrastructure they're connected to. And for the infrastructure, which applications and services are sat on top of it, and start to build a unified view. So if we think banking, well, you have ATMs and you have bank branches that have terminals inside them. If you've ever been into a branch and sat down with a real person to do a loan approval, right, they're tapping into a terminal. That terminal is connected to the same back-end IT systems as digital and online banking through private SD-WAN network, which is monitored and managed by the team. So we build this end-to-end visibility that we know about every single part of the connected business and the relationships between them. The first thing that does is it actually helps teams understand how what they own supports the wider business. Right? And this is actually really crucial for driving alignment between teams. And actually, it starts to drive shared responsibility. People now get visibility of how what they do contributes to the business. Now, it also helps them prioritize. If you take the example of the network team, they have a switch outage. They now actually have visibility of how that is impacting the business.
So we build out these relationships, this intertwined, highly dependent network, right? A graph, so to speak. Now, how do AI agents sit on top of that and handle that orchestration? How do AI agents pick up that it's the network over here that needs attention and these are the people that need to be properly alerted?
One of the unique things about agentic AI is you can ask it to build you a plan. So for anyone that's ever done, code development and has had to debug an issue, or if they've ever troubleshooted any kind of incident or production outage, what you'll know is this is very iterative. What a skilled human does is they look at the data that they got about the problem and they say, well, based on this data, I think it's this, or this is the first thing I'm going to investigate. So you then do some investigation based on what you got back from that analysis. You then say, okay, this is what I'm going to do next. And it's very, very iterative. Now, this is the new tool in the toolbox from agentic AI, right? You can ask AI to build you a plan of how to diagnose or troubleshoot an incident. So based on, for this incident, I know here's my application and all of the components and the dependencies. Here's where problems have been identified via alerts. And based on that, I'm going to, iteratively analyze down the dependency chain to the bottom level. And it looks like, we ran out of disk space. Now, you can give that information to the agent and say, well, how do you investigate this? And it might say, right, well, the next thing we should do is look to see whether there's anything else using the disk that might have caused us to run out of disk space. And it gives a task to execute, gets data back, looks at that data and says, right, now that we've got more data, I'm going to build a new plan. And this is really that new tool. It's iterative analysis, building a dynamic workflow to continually close down on what we think is the source of the problem. The next stage of AIOps really is agents doing iterative analysis and debugging and troubleshooting down to more and more refined root cause. And then that allows us to start to say, now, how do I fix the problem? What automations have I got to resolve the problem?
So, I mean, are we talking about smarter tools or just a new layer of intelligence baked into how organizations run?
It's a new layer of intelligence, but like with anything with AI, right? We often talk garbage in, garbage out. I like to think of it as the better the data, the better the outcomes. And that's why, what we do in unified operations, right? The Cloud Pack for AIOps is we start off with a better data model.
So, I mean, right now we see AIOps mostly inside of IT, but where else could you see this expanded? Could AI operations eventually support, business processes and finance, supply chain? Do we see this moving outwards?
So those concepts are being applied to many more different areas, right? So previously when we had AI assistants, really, you might have a chat interface, but they only implemented certain pre-canned tasks. You can now start to say, well, go and solve this problem for me. And it will build a plan to solve that problem. And it can also handle the case that that plan might not be correct, but it will, execute one step of it, realize that that step either does or does not help you towards the outcome. And if it doesn't, it will build a new plan based on that additional information. It knows that, if you think about it as a decision tree, this branch of the tree does not solve the problem. Therefore, I'll take the other branch. And yes, this is already being applied to other scenarios. I would say we're probably a little bit ahead of the game on the IT side because, we're all technical people. We actually understand how the technology is working, and we're probably more ready to adopt this kind of technology than business people might be, where it's kind of like, I'm not sure I trust, what it's doing here and how it's working.
Manoj, I'm curious from your perspective, right? How do you see this impacting, the people that are doing this right now, right? Is this going to be an increase in the technology and a decrease in FTEs? Or do you think that the need for this is just going to grow and it's going to be more technology and more people because the complexity is gone up?
Yeah, I think it's a combination, I think it's definitely is going to help you to increase the productivity. So yes, there is a decrease in the amount of people required to do things. But at the same time, obviously you can repurpose those resources to retrain them to the new technology, right? Well, the way I see is evolving is, you may not have that overall L1 layer, so to speak, to look at the alerts coming from the system or incidents coming from the system. You want to have automated validation. You want to have automated troubleshooting going on through that iterative process that Chris was mentioning via using agents, and even further automate that resolution using even further automation, right? So now that whole initial triage, that's where the most of the labor was spent, we can pretty much free up that resources to upskill and train them to how to leverage agents, how to really prompt those agents to get a better outcome from those recommendations coming out of that conversation with your AI. This is going to increase, the use cases are going to increase, and even we're talking about even the agentic AI to AI communication. I think the way I see is in future is essentially every interface that you're going to interact with will have some sort of agent to connect with, and essentially my technology is talking to your technology with one of our AI agents making decisions on behalf of us and actually helping us, guiding through that process.
When it comes to operations, observability alone isn't enough anymore. Visibility without action doesn't move the needle. To truly automate, you need integration across your systems, a single source of truth that connects insight with execution. As systems grow more complex, turning insight into tangible results is where the real challenge begins. One of the biggest challenges with AI adoption is change management, right? Now, Manoj, you've been doing this for a number of years now, and I know you've worked with clients on, across the entire spectrum, from being very immature to having a very mature practice. I'm curious, could you share with us, how have you seen the maturity grow? How has the mindset of IT leaders changed as they've leaned in and shifted left with AIOps?
Yeah, I think the user adoption of this technology is really driven by openness for adoption of change, or even continuously engaging the audience and training the personnel involved in this process. I think it's definitely a change, and that's the idea about adoption of AI, to bring that transformation to things that you have been doing for maybe more than a decade or two or three. So, how do I engage my users? How can I take feedback from users? How can I take feedback from SREs and engage them early in the process so they are prepared to see what's coming in their life cycle of managing those incidents? And then better prepared the test case plans for them. I would in fact encourage clients even to think about how they can leverage this technology to their advantage and hand over some of those mundane tasks that can be more automated using the AI capability.
I know we've only scratched the surface, and we definitely want to help our listeners think about where we believe this to be going, right? I don't think anybody knows where AI is going in the next 3 to 5 years or even the next 6 months. But as we think about the evolution of AI ops, what are the biggest things on the radar that you think leaders should keep in mind?
What's emerging at the moment is this sense of kind of like agentic diagnostics, agentic troubleshooting. Increasingly, there's an ecosystem that's kind of being built in that IT tools are increasingly exposing AI agent capabilities using MCP servers, model context protocol. They're exposing agent capabilities using the agent-to-agent interface. This is increasingly going to allow us to, apply that kind of iterative analysis, iterative dynamic workflow capabilities to more use cases inside AIOps. And that means more and more things which we traditionally relied on an expert to do manually and slowly, we will be able to do automatically with kind of like a full analysis log, which means we're accelerating humans. Right? Humans are still required because they review, they approve, they take action. Right? I think the tools that we've now got will certainly keep us busy, building on top of that for the next 2 to 3 years at least. If you go back in history and you look through this, at every stage we've provided more automation. It's actually resulted in more usage, right? More people being involved in that domain, not less. Now, on the other side, generative AI is making it easier to write code faster than ever before, which means on one side, we're going to start building and deploying more and more software. At the other side, of course, what's going to help enable that is we can now manage and do operations for increasingly large amounts of software without the cost exploding. So what's going to happen is as ops gets more efficient and as development gets more efficient, companies are going to be able to build more and more advanced capabilities in software. More of their business will be implemented in software. And we'll have this synergistic capability where we're building more, we're operating more, and we'll probably find out the net effect of that is more jobs, not less.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me in this lively conversation. I mean, I'm curious. We've talked a lot about elephants. Can we wrap this up with an elephant analogy of where this is going?
So, one of our previous CEOs in IBM, Lou Gerstner, he wrote a book about the transformation of IBM, which was titled something along the lines of, making elephants dance. And it comes to mind, but I'm not sure if it's a good analogy of how, we go from 6 blind men with an elephant to, the future. But yes, it's just interestingly that, Lou Gerstner wrote the book around the transformation of IBM from kind of like, a legacy mainframe company to a modern software company is making the elephant dance.
Well, I look forward to seeing some dancing elephants. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
A huge thanks to Chris and Manoj. As I walk away from this conversation, one thing stands out. The mission of operations rarely changes. AIOps is still about the same core goals: unification, visibility, efficiency, and cultural transformation. As agentic AI enters the picture, it's more important than ever for teams, no matter where they sit in the organization, to work together in unison. Because we definitely don't want anyone mistaking an inside threat for an elephant. Now, do we? I'm Jonathan Goff, and this is Edge of IT. If you enjoyed the episode, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And if you'd like to learn more, visit us at Pellera.com.